Carlie Manners, the assistant offensive line coach with the Toronto Varsity Blues football team. Carlie, I'd love to know, how did you get started in coaching in the first place?
When I was doing my master's degree at the University of New Brunswick, I started playing senior women's tackle football. And I really fell in love with it. The environment, the people, like the culture. And then I got into my PhD here at U of T, and I wanted to kind of recreate that environment and keep playing as an athlete. The York Region Lions had said, like, well, we have this U18 women's tackle program that needs coaches, and we could work with you to a senior program. And at that point I was like, yeah. So it just really fell into my lap, and I think it was like the first two practices, I just absolutely fell in love. It felt very natural to me.
Your journey with sports started with you being an athlete, and then playing basketball as well for the Algoma Thunderbirds, and then also having some football experience as well. So I guess, can you bring us a little bit further back as to why and when you started playing, first of all, basketball, then football?
I started playing basketball in high school. I went to Eastern Commerce Collegiate here in Toronto, which is this absolute basketball powerhouse. And I didn't go there to play basketball. I was actually a competitive softball player. It was my entire life. It was what I cared about 24 hours of the day. But I just loved to compete, and I really wanted to play football for my high school. And they had this development program, and the head coach, who was a U of T Varsity Blue, he allowed me to play, and I had this great experience. But my parents were a little concerned about injury and my softball career, so the basketball coach at Eastern Commerce convinced me that he could help get me in better shape for softball by playing basketball. Softball didn't really work out for me, but I was going to go to Algoma University, pursue history, and the basketball coach there got sight of me and convinced me to play, and I made a 4-year career out of that. For a year, I was able to play in what was at that point called Powder Puff. And most of the schools in Ontario would come together for breast cancer research at the time and play in the winter 11-a-side semi-contact flag football. So I played for a year, and that was really great, but I was still a varsity athlete in basketball, so I didn't continue. But when I moved to New Brunswick and saw that they had this really robust women's tackle culture there, that's when I got really serious about it.
So can you tell me what your role is as a coach with the Varsity Blues?
I'm the assistant offensive line coach, and when I was brought in, it was kind of under the umbrella that I loved the offensive line. I wanted to really grow my knowledge. So right now I coach women's 6-a-side. So I'm used to coaching a 3-surface offensive line, but I wanted more experience in coaching a 5-surface line, and being with the coaching staff that I'm with, I'm really able to do that, and I think it's been pretty effective so far. I help with tagging film, running practices, and prepping, for games each week.
Can you tell me about that team that won the national title?
Yeah, it was an incredible opportunity. In 2023, I was the offensive line coach, and I was hired on to be the head coach for 2024. And honestly, I was very nervous. It felt like a big jump, but I knew that I had the vision, and I had people in my network that's going to be supportive of that in the coaching staff. The very first ID camps that happened for a national championship in 2022 had about 24 athletes. This past year in 2024, we had over 100 athletes that were interested. And we very quickly realized as a staff that we had the talent to win a national championship, and that we just had to put all the pieces in place, put people in the right positions, and encourage them and build the culture around them to make that successful. So I really started focusing in on building what was going to be a team culture. Football is such an incredible game because it is so accessible to athletes of all body types. There's not a lot of sports where you can have someone who's 6'1", also playing and as effective as someone who's 5 foot in a women's sport. And that opens up pathways for athletes who don't even see themselves as athletes. Now they have the potential and value on the field.
For you as a coach, what are your philosophies as a coach? What do you try to instill in the athletes that you work with?
First is always a sense of confidence in themselves. I truly believe that every athlete, every coach, every person that is in a program adds value. as well. I am definitely a coach that is focused on trying to expand people's athletic IQ as much as possible and to coach them where they're at, not necessarily where I want them to be. So it's really an individual process. How does this one athlete learn best? What are the tools that I have in my toolkit to help get them to that point? And what does this process look like?
You're pursuing your PhD here at the University of Toronto. What is that like?
So right now, I'm in my 6th year of my PhD in the Department of History at the University of Toronto. It's a really fulfilling pathway. It's a long pathway, certainly with the pandemic. But what that looks like for me now is I've done all of my courses, all of my exams, so I'm really just writing my dissertation. And one of the best parts about doing the PhD in here for me is that I get so much experience in teaching. So right now I'm instructing a course, and I get to really put a lot of my passions for Caribbean history, which is particularly what I study, into the classroom. Well, I study the Caribbean, and particularly I study material culture that is taken out of the Caribbean in the late 18th, early 19th centuries. So artifacts and plant matter, and is brought into World's Fairs, exhibitions, and museums, and is used to create knowledge about Black Caribbeans and Indigenous Caribbeans. And that knowledge kind of works alongside British imperial politics.
What would you have to say to someone who is in that boat? Maybe they're like worried about balancing both kind of passion.
Oh, I was definitely in that boat. That was definitely me in my undergrad. And even at times through the PhD, what I kind of come back to continuously is that they aren't these polar opposites like we like to think of. They lend to each other so well. So find the spaces that, you know, your discipline from being an athlete can help you in your discipline as an academic. And your intelligence as an academic help you in your sport. And that was the way that I was best able to help myself through my undergrad, through my master's, and definitely the PhD.
Are there any misconceptions that people might have for women's football?
Oh yeah, there's always a perception that women's tackle is somehow soft, that women don't want to hit as hard or they're not as naturally aggressive. And coaching teenage girls, I can say that is the complete opposite. One of the kind of remarkable things that I saw even in the last year is when media would do interviews with these athletes, or we would do surveys and say, what do you look forward to? At some point, someone's going to say the ability to be aggressive. And I think that is great. I think if we have a controlled environment where we could just let these girls be aggressive and feel strong, feel powerful, then we're doing something right. But absolutely, these girls can hit hard. They're big, they're moving bodies, and they're just as capable to play the sport as men.
What would you say to young women who want to play and are nervous? Mm-hmm. And then what would you say to young women who want to coach and are nervous? And maybe they don't want to play, maybe they want to coach, or maybe both, I'm not sure. But what would you kind of give that for advice and encouragement?
Right now, in the women's tackle space, there's just so many opportunities. Just take that very first step and put yourself out there. Right now, I would say in the women's tackle space, a lot of the concern is around safety. But we have such excellent coaches that are in this space right now that our primary concern is safety, making sure people are wearing the correct equipment that is sized to them, making sure they're hitting correctly. And in coaching, it's really about just saying yes to the opportunities that you're getting. You can be a little bit nervous about, taking that first step, but that is fine. It's very similar to my philosophy in teaching and in coaching, but that idea that everyone has value.
What has it been like for you to be, on the sidelines and stuff and seeing the team grow because of you as well?
It's been incredible. This is a really special program, and kudos to Coach DA for coming in this season. The kind of culture that he has cultivated on respect, love, and trust, I think has put us in a position that we're going to have longevity in our success. I'm really a proponent of the idea that success doesn't happen overnight, and it is not just a single destination. We are building something that's really important here.
It's great for you to be part of, obviously, the Canadian system. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. I love Canadian football. I love 12-a-side football. And I think it's what we have here is really special. I understand, there is certain tribes who want to go down to the States, but the kind of football culture that we have in Canada is what really drew me into the sport at the first place. It wasn't just the X's and O's, it's how people relate to each other, how they understand the game, and how they want to play it. So being here in youth sport, which already gave me so much as an athlete, and being able to give back in another sport is really cool.